In this video, I'm going to show you how to install tiles on your rake for a flat tile roof. Now the pattern on every rake system is going to be a little bit different depending on the pattern of your tiles. Remember, depending on the size of your rake, you're going to make shorter or longer tiles either at the eaves or at the ridge. So this kind of varies case by case, but the concept remains the same. Your first piece of rake, you essentially want to cut it to line up with your first tile. Now in this case, we have this short tile installed here. I've done this for a different demonstration. However, what we're going to do is obviously we're not going to put a 2-inch piece of rake. We're going to measure out and we cut out a piece of rake coming from all the way at the bottom of the eave all the way to this first tile. Once we have this in place, it lines up with the bottom of the second tile. Now one thing you want to make sure is you're using long enough nails to get a good grab into your rake board. Now depending on the size and what you're nailing into, you want to ensure that it's not protruding out from the back side. So just use essentially the longest nail possible without sticking through. And for these rakes, you definitely want to make sure that you're putting a nail in each opening. That way you'll know that this is completely secure. You can also put adhesive on this top side to ensure that the rake doesn't pull off this way. For this demonstration, I'm not, but really all that you need to do if you want to have extra security is put some mastic on the backside before you stick it on. That way you'll know both the top is secure chemically and you're mechanically fastened inside. Now we're going to install this piece right here. Again, depending on your layout, the depth and the overlap is going to vary. For this demonstration, I'm going to have a 3-inch overlap. Now this last piece right here, we're not going to install until we have this side of the rake installed in order to be able to properly join these last 2 pieces. So I'm going to leave this as is for now, work on the other side, then once I get to the middle, I'll install the final 2 pieces simultaneously. Now one thing actually I want to show you here is you can use bits of tiles to raise up as needed. So if you have a gap that you're trying to fill, just get a piece of tile, the same color, put some adhesive on it, and that's going to help you fill up that gap right there. You can either use that or some mortar. However, that's really just aesthetic work. Now, you'll see that the underlayment is actually coming out past the rake. We can let this stick out, then cut it later, or you can cut it beforehand. I personally don't mind it hanging over because I want the underlayment to go as far as possible without being visible. So I just like to install the rakes, then take a knife and cut it off later. Now anytime you have a rake overlapping, you always want to put a nail in this hole right here. But because it isn't overlap, you want to drill it first with a masonry bit. And generally for these holes, you want to use longer nails. Again, the whole idea of the length of the nail is go as long as possible to get a good grab into your rake board, not long enough to penetrate through it. So every tile, every rake is going to be a little bit different. So I'm not going to give you the exact specifications on what nails to use, but the concept remains the same. Alright, now we're all the way at the ridge and we're ready to install our 2 pieces. I've pre-cut these rakes as there's no real science behind it besides having it line up. What I want to do is I want to prop it up so it's at the correct angle. If you don't prop it up, you'll see that the angle of this rake here is not aligned with this. So we want to prop it up and have it look something like this. And again, you can use broken pieces of tile to do this. What we want to do is use some caulking or adhesive and just put a dab on it. And what this is going to do is it's going to secure this tile and ensure it doesn't move as we're installing it. Alright, so I've got this lined up and I know what I want it to look like. What I want to do now is, prior to installing it, I always prefer to put a little bit of adhesive at this corner. That way the 2 rakes will both be mechanically fastened onto the rake board and also be glued together. Again, I'm just going to put just a slight bit of caulking here on this edge. And obviously pick a color that matches the tile as close as possible. So we've got this installed. Now we want to make holes here. All right, and that pretty much is a wrap. Now, one mistake that I did make that I want to point out to you is these two nails right here. Anytime you're working with tiles, you want to make sure that you at least have an inch of grab, an inch of meat between the nail and the edge itself. If not, this little piece of concrete is going to break off quite easily. So in a real world application, what I would prefer to do is leave this hole as is. Since that hole is already there, we won't touch it. We'll just make another hole about an inch, inch and a half away from that, and nail it through there to have a little bit of more meat. Final touch that can be done is just applying a little bit of spray paint on top of these nails' heads. You can clean off the excess with a paper towel. The purpose of this is take the shine off so you don't see it from the ground level. So again, that's purely aesthetics right there, not needing to be done. And lastly, I want to demonstrate what I meant by this little bit of edge that's left easily breaking. So with just a tap or two, maybe not as easily as possible, but you can see that this edge here is prone to breaking. So always make sure you have enough grab on your nails and that you're nailing about an inch, inch and a half in from the edge of your tile. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. We have a bunch of other videos for flat tile roof installation tutorials. If we're missing something, let us know and we'd like to fill it out for you. Thanks for watching.